All right, we're going to be starting module 3 with this video. This first one's going to be rather short, just to kind of lay down the concepts of what we're going to be talking about in this module. Basically, what we're going to be talking about is the inequality of what we call life chances. I'll go over that in just a bit. And we're going to examine 4 different things, not certainly by any means the totality of the things that affect our life chances in our society. But we're going to look at 4 very major ones. I'll talk about that in a second. First of all, we should talk about inequality and different sociological perspectives of inequality. The 2 biggest, most popular ones in sociology come from both Karl Marx and Max Weber. So when we talk about Karl Marx, very simple, Marx believed that the only distinctions in society among classes and those things that distinguish people from one another was this concept of the ownership of the means of production. Okay? Again, Marx talking in a time when society was rapidly transitioning from agricultural to industrial society, so many of his concerns were about things like industrialization, factories and workers and owners, that kind of stuff. So basically what Marx said was, in a complex society, an industrial society, you either own the means of production or you don't. The means of production is any way that things get produced in an industrial society. So you either own land, factories, transportation methods, natural resources, all the things that an industrial society needs to produce things. You either own them or you don't. Okay, very simple distinction. If you're an owner, he generally regarded you as a capitalist, or the more appropriate term that Marx used was the bourgeoisie. Right, those people who owned the means of production and basically controlled everything. And then everyone else was considered a worker, or again, to use the terms that Marx used, part of the proletariat, and that meant that you didn't own the means of production and you sold your labor to the capitalists. So that was it for Marx. And he described inequality in a society solely based on this one dimension, ownership of the means of production. And again, a lot of conflict theories based on this, a lot of more modern Marxist base theories, start with this general concept. Max Weber, however, get over there for his name, right? Max Weber talked about one's position in society as related to the 3 Ps. Again, if you've had an intro to sociology, I'm sure you've heard these terms before. If you haven't, we're just going to go over them real briefly. Right? So Max Weber said your position in society was based on what he called your proximity to the 3 Ps, or how much of these things you have. Okay, and the 3 Ps we define as property, power, and prestige. Property, things you own; wealth, anything with value. So it could be, for many of us, the main way that we value or interpret our property is how much money we bring in through income, salary, wages, those kind of things. The things we own, cars, homes, for people at the very top, it could be, the amount of money they, have wrapped up in investments or properties, physical real estate properties that they own and get dividends from, or rent, those kind of things. So property is anything with value in a society. Power is the ability to impose your will on other people. In other words, get people to do what you want. So this is related to your position in society, perhaps related to your occupation, whether or not there's a lot of people that have to do what you tell them to do. It could also be related to things like political power. Anything that puts you in a position where you can say to other people, do this, and they really either choose to or feel like they have to do what you say. And then the last one, prestige, is this idea of fame, or the amount of respect you're given in society. Again, for many people, you'll see that these 3 Ps are very linked to one another, right? Usually when the common saying is, to have one gives you the other 2, generally, in great amounts. So again, if you've got a lot of property, probably you're very rich and people know who you are. We can think of modern day billionaires, right? Elon Musk, Bill Gates, these type of people who, we say, okay, they're very famous because they're very rich, right? other people, for most of us, prestige is again related a lot to our occupation. And there's an actual breakdown. Many studies have gone and polled lots and lots and lots of people to decide, okay, what kind of occupations in society do we give more respect or renown to? And big surprises, things like doctors and lawyers and college professors and CEOs and airline pilots, and all these other things, usually related to high need for education, intellectual work, things that require abstract thought. Whereas if then we rank occupations down middle of the ground, you might see things like construction workers and teachers. It could be and then again, not to be putting these occupations down, but as we get to the bottom, then we're getting into things like garbage collectors and people who are unemployed or underemployed, bartenders, waitresses, these kind of things typically have lower occupational prestige. Not to say that those aren't important jobs or that people can't make a living from them, but in society we tend to say these are the kind of jobs that require less education, usually involve more manual labor rather than abstract thought, those kind of things. So for Weber, the idea of where we rank in society is related to how much of these three Ps we have. So if you have lots of the three Ps, lots of property, power, and prestige, you're probably going to be ranked pretty high in society. Whereas if you have very little of these, you probably are ranked fairly low in society. And what this does is either of these two means, but the one that most sociologists tend to focus on is Weber, right? The one that we tend to say, okay, this is the one that makes the most sense, explains society, and probably in the most correct way would be Weber's ideas of the three Ps. And what this means is, whether or not you believe in Marx, ownership of the means of production, or whether or not, like I said, more commonly we use Weber's three Ps, this is going to affect what we call our life chances. Okay, our ability to improve the quality of our life, to be successful in society. Okay, clearly, if we're looking at Marx, we're going to say that if you own the means of production, in other words, you're the bourgeoisie or the high up in the capitalist food chain, your chances of being successful in society or in life are going to be improved. According to Weber, if you've got a lot of the three Ps, chances are your ability to be successful in life or improve your station in life are going to be improved. So again, we talk about this the idea of life chances. So in the upcoming lectures, we're going to take a look at four very important aspects. Two of them are categories. Categories are things that people are placed in, sometimes voluntarily, a lot of times involuntarily, but they're just ways of kind of separating people into different groups in society. We're going to take a look at two categories. One, race, and another one, gender, right? These are ways that society kind of decides who fits where. And we're going to take a look at those in much more detail. And then the other two are social institutions, which again, when we talk about the structure of society, social institutions are those very, very, very large components of society comprised of lots of different roles and groups and positions that people take in society that provide society with some necessary thing for it to survive. And we're going to take a look at two of those, one being education, the other one being healthcare. So again, we're going to have a lecture on race, we're going to have a lecture on gender, a lecture on education, and a lecture on healthcare. And each of those, we're going to be looking at how do each of these very, very, very important categories or institutions of society affect our life chances.